Take a pit stop for all things NASCAR with the Four Tire Change podcast. Here is your host, Dawson Iserlo.
A surprise episode of the Four Tire Change podcast. Welcome back in. Dawson Iserlo here with you, ESPN Southwest Louisiana. I said today was going to be an off week, or this week was going to be an off week, because it was just the All-Star race going to North Wilkesboro. Didn't think there was going to be a ton to talk about. Thought, why don't we just do a 2-week recap of the Coke 600 and the All-Star race with a little bit of Indy 500 thrown in because of Kyle Larson doing double duty. And then the All-Star race had maybe the biggest fight of the NASCAR season and a whole bunch of other things going on. So we're back. Why not? Let's just make another episode. So let's get right into it. Went into the previous race and, the All-Star race week thinking, as I just said, we'll see what happens. They're going back to North Wilkesboro. Excited about that. Excited about the history involved with that racetrack. Excited to see how everything kind of came back into focus and all the improvements that they made with the track and the repave and all that greatness. But thought the race itself was going to be fairly uneventful. And honestly, in a lot of ways, it was. What we did get this year was kind of a Goodyear experiment with the tires and everything like that, where they were trying some different tire compounds. We've seen this, of course, in F1 and NASCAR, essentially trying to fix the short tracks because we know how tough it's been, decided to throw some things at the wall here. And I have no problem with what they did. I actually am a really big fan of it. The idea was you were going to get some tires that really wore off after 30, 40 lap runs, which maybe would be similar to what we saw at Bristol a month or so ago, where everything was really interesting with the tires kind of falling apart. That didn't exactly come to fruition, as we found out here as this race went along. There really was only like a tenth of drop-off. It wasn't anywhere near what they were expecting. And that overall, in some ways, made the racing kind of boring there. Joey Logano runs up front. He leads essentially every single lap of this race. There was one lap where it was a pit road thing where only because his pit stall was before the start-finish line, he didn't lead a lap. But really, Logano led every lap, which is really interesting, by the way, because Joey Logano has had anything but a dominant season in the Cup Series this year. He's right on the cut line for the playoffs, I think currently on the outside looking in, and yet he comes in and just dominates this thing. Penske brought a lot of speed. Ryan Blaney was really good as well. The Fords in general. Chris Buescher had another good run. But all in all, the racing was good, not great. It was okay even. I don't know if I should say good. It was something. Does it mean we shouldn't go back to North Wilkesboro? Not at all. We need to be going back to North Wilkesboro. I think it should be a points race. I am all for it. I want to see as much there as possible. The most intriguing thing, though, and the thing, we're not going to bury the lead too much longer here. Let's just go into it. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. and Kyle Busch. So on the second lap of the race, and I was watching this live and thought to myself, what is Kyle Busch doing so early? So essentially there gets a bit of a 3-wide push where Stenhouse kind of forces the issue early. It's lap 1. It's not a great decision, but all in all, I think it was no harm, no foul. Kyle Busch thought he got into him. Stenhouse, if you look back at it, doesn't look like he really did, and they talked about that afterwards before some punches were thrown. And then the next lap, Busch just essentially dumps Stenhouse into the wall, destroys that race car, and he's done for the day. The funny thing about North Wilkesboro, it's an old-school racetrack. There is no crossover that you see at like a Dover, for instance, where you can walk up above the track. There's no tunnel underneath it that is accessible. So the drivers were stuck in the infield after their day was done. So Ricky Stenhouse Jr. didn't have the opportunity to go back to his RV and kind of cool off or whatever it may have been. He had to just kind of sit there and, think about what had happened and the wrong that had been done to him by Mr. Kyle Busch himself. In his post-race interview that he did with Fox Sports, of course, or after the crash, I should say, he did say that Richard Childress might have to hold his watch, or he said Richard, I'm assuming he's alluding to Childress there, implying that he was going to get into a fight. But I think we thought, okay, yeah, but it's lap 2, so you give him 198 laps to cool down. Maybe this won't happen. Then we have this epic shot where the media scrum was well aware that there might be something that went down between Kyle Busch and Ricky Stenhouse Jr., so they're all following Kyle Busch right at the conclusion of the race. And of course, Ricky Stenhouse Jr. is sitting there almost like a movie scene with his arm leaned up against the hauler of the number 8 team, just patiently waiting. I mean, it was really such a funny sight, and you knew it was about to go down, right? I didn't think it was going to get physical, because then they start having a conversation, and to be honest, it wasn't like last week where Buescher goes up to Reddick and immediately kind of shoves him or anything. Like, they start having a fairly cordial, although, passionate conversation about what happened, and Stenhouse is obviously saying he didn't get into him, and Busch is saying he did, and all these different things, and they're talking about it like NASCAR drivers do in instances like this. And then it gets towards the end, and there's a couple little, kind of creative little statements said by one party or the other, and then Stenhouse just takes his swing, and he really connects with Kyle. And then, of course, the scrum happens where all the crew members get involved. Ricky Stenhouse Jr.'s dad jumps into the mix, and Stenhouse is like saying, somebody get my dad out of there. He kind of swings at Kyle Busch a little bit. A whole lot of stuff going down there, and really kind of one of the epic moments there. And what made it better is that all the media members were there. So not only did we get this on TV, as a live shot, as it cuts away, by the way, from Joey Logano's interview after winning the All-Star race and winning his $1 million and, saying how happy he is about the fast race car that the Penske brought to the track. And we get right to these two in a scrum. But what we saw afterwards was all the different social media angles about it. And you saw Bob Pockrass of Fox Sports have his angle, and Jordan Bianchi of The Athletic post his angle. And you can kind of splice together and get different pieces of the fight and of the altercation from all the different media members who all had their phones out at the moment. So that was just awesome to see. And look, here's the bottom line. I know there's been some talk about suspensions or non-suspensions. I don't think we need to kid ourselves. NASCAR likes this type of stuff. They put it on their commercials. We know it, right? Now, can they act like they condone acts of violence and fighting and things like that? No, they can't do that from a PR standpoint. So they're going to levy some sort of punishment. But are they going to suspend Ricky Stenhouse Jr. or Kyle Busch for this incident? I'd be shocked. Because in reality, they enjoy when altercations like this go down, at least in my opinion. I just think there's no way to look around that. They want their drivers to be passionate and argumentative with each other and care. And when push comes to shove and a few punches are thrown, as long as nobody's seriously injured, I think they're going to be fine with all that. Now, as I already said, they have to make some sort of, punishment decision on this, because you can't just tell everybody you want them to be fighting each other and throwing swings after every altercation. But all in all, it made for a really entertaining Sunday night in the NASCAR Cup Series. And now I wanted to talk a little bit about Kyle Larson, because that's the other thing that's going on here. He's qualifying for the Indy 500, and he qualifies fifth. And, there's been a lot said about it. The talent of the driver, we know how good Kyle Larson is as both a Cup Series driver, and when he gets in a dirt late model, and when he gets out and drives all these other different cars and all the different disciplines that he's involved with. But to do it in the Indy 500, and look, we saw Kurt Busch struggle mightily when he did it. We know how hard it is for a guy to jump into a car. It's a completely different setup, and be competitive with some of the best drivers in the world at driving that car. That's why what Shane Van Gisbergen did was so impressive, although, you still have to have the caveat of him being way more comfortable on a street-style course like Chicago last year. But when he jumped into this car and you go, he's not driving those cars every week like Kyle Larson is, or like Michael McDowell, who was, a winner at a road course, or Tyler Reddick, or some of these other road course aces, and he beat them all. This is kind of where Kyle Larson's getting to now with the Indy 500. Now, he hasn't won the race yet, and we'll see. He hasn't had a lot of experience in traffic, so he's going to have to deal with those things. But to go to Indy, qualify fifth, make the fast sixth, then qualify only falling behind one of his teammates and the Penske cars, incredibly impressive. And NASCAR fans will have even extra reason to be paying attention to the Indy 500 on, the Super Bowl day of motorsports in some regards here, when you have both the 500 and the 600. The Coke 600 will be after that, and Larson will, of course, be doing double duty. We'll see how his travel plans are. I heard that there's some different things that are going to play into that. Hopefully he's able to get there for both and everything goes well. And imagine the result if Kyle Larson at least finishes well at Indy and then goes in at the Coke 600, and we figure he's going to finish pretty well there. He's going to be in a lightning-fast Hendrick car, we imagine. It could be a really, really special day for motorsport in general. So I'm excited for it. It's one of those, kind of special days that we circle on the calendar. And I can't say it wouldn't be really exciting if Kyle Larson got the job done. Imagine if he won them both. I mean, look, it's a very big stretch. I don't think he's going to go out and win the Indy 500 in his first ever start in one of those cars. But it would be a real storyline if he did, or at least, as I mentioned, if he ran well, which I think, based on everything we've seen, he's got every opportunity to do so. So all that being said, the rest of the Coke 600, the thing is, Ford started to grab some momentum. Can they keep it going? Can a guy like Chris Buescher get over the hump? Can Blaney and Logano kind of get back into form? We know Blaney's had better points finishes throughout the year. Does Hendrick and Gibbs kind of get back to their run of dominance here on the mile and a half and on basically all the tracks outside of the super speedways, where even on the drafting tracks they've had their fair share of success? I think it's going to be a lot of fun, and I'm ready for it. I'll make a pick. I really, really was tempted to go with Larson here when it comes to the Coke 600. I almost did, but I am going to go away from it. I do think, when you think about all the different things that are going to be going on with him mentally that day, all the travel, all the miles he's going to run in one single day and in one weekend with the practices and the qualifyings and everything else like that, I'll go away from Larson, but I won't go too far away. Give me Chase Elliott to make a statement here. He's got the one win. We know that it hasn't been the greatest season for him consistency-wise. Other than the win, Larson's kind of outrun him. Byron, at least at the beginning of the year, certainly outran him. Now Byron's come into kind of a bit of a rut himself. But Chase Elliott to make a big statement on one of NASCAR's biggest days. I'm going to go with the number 9 team. We'll see, though. Tempted to go with the Gibbs team as well, but overall, if it's not going to be Hamlin, I don't know if the rest of those cars are in race winning form right now. We'll see if Truex can get over the hump as well. But either way, I'm excited to see it. Thank you for tuning into a special bonus edition of 4 Tire Change. Thought we were going to have the week off. Decided this was worthy of making an extra episode for. So we'll be back again next week. Coke 600 recap. I'm going to try and get a little bit of a guest rotation coming in soon here as well. So that should be fun. Please continue to leave a comment, man. Who do you have winning the Coke 600? Who do you have winning the Indy 500? I want to hear all about it. And subscribe as well. Keep joining us here on the 4 Tire Change podcast.